The film explores the theme of longing and belonging. So, how did you come up with this theme and how did it resonate with you?
I like very much the theme of longing. In all my work, it's about longing. All my films are about longing because I think that longing is a feeling where I can explore a lot of things because there's a whole absent person, and that means the person who's longing can put whatever they want into the absence, and that for me is interesting cinematic tool to use. So but one of the most important things for me is love, and in my previous film also it was love as to talk about a lot of politics is something that I'm interested in, and in India love is very political.
Yeah.
And the question of identity and who you can love and who you can be with becomes kind of central to everything. I find it an interesting way to kind of talk about a lot of things.
Tell us a bit more about how you've used the three protagonists as the living embodiments of light, especially when you're using the camera.
I feel like the three of them, although they are quite different from each other, they could be like the chronology of maybe one life, because, you know, they are like different generations of women who are all struggling with different things, but could easily be just one trajectory of a person as well. And I was interested in basically having this intergenerational friendship, and something that is very unique to big cities, like especially in Mumbai. The relationship, this particular friendship can only be in a big city, because when you have a roommate, for example, in Mumbai, you need a roommate because it's so expensive to rent a place. So inevitably you'll have a roommate. Now that person may or may not be your friend, but you're stuck with them. This was the kind of relationship of Anu and Prabha, because they're quite different from each other, and they maybe became friends because of sharing a room, literally. That for me is a very city friendship. And even Parvati, like to have a woman who's Maharashtrian to be friends with a Malayali woman cannot happen in too many parts of the country, no, because we just stay in our states, and so a city again becomes a space for this unique friendship to take place. For me, it was important to have three women who are different and yet can be kind of the family support system for each other as well.
It is a co-production. And how was the collaboration with the cast and the crew? And was there anything that came out of these collaborations at the end of the film which you had not envisioned before?
Yes, it's a very collaborative film, and I'm really thankful for that, because the people who worked on it really thought of it as their own, and that's just nice. Because it's a film about family and friendship, and when the unit also has that feeling, what else can you ask for? So especially working with these actresses, they are more than anything else great artists and great human beings. We did a lot of rehearsals together before the shooting of the film. A lot of scenes that are not even in the film, we would just try out, saying, okay, maybe let's try a different day where Anu and Prabha are at home. Let's try a different something else happening. We would do a lot of these scenes, and sometimes out of that extra, some scenes made it into the film. So, for example, the scene where they all dance together, that was done just because we wanted to do a few scenes to see what it's like to arrive at Parvati's house. They did it with such effortless affection that we had to put it in the film.
Right.
So I really owe it to them. And even the song that was in that scene, it was actually chosen by Chaya Kadam, who was playing Parvati.
Right.
She suggested this song. Because I was thinking, what song will we play? What should it be? You know, it should be something that is making sense thematically. And she said, you know, this film Caravan, there's this really funny song from it where this woman is, you know, dancing on stage and she doesn't want to be there. And she's like, what the hell am I doing here? So I knew the song, of course, but she has a very good memory about these things. So she suggested it, and I was like, it's perfect, because Parvati has come back to her hometown. She's making this rash decision, and she's probably thinking like, oh my God, what have I done? And you know, funnily enough, we played this song when we all walked the red carpet in Cannes. This was the song we played. So because we also felt like, where the hell have we ended up? What are we doing here? Some self-reflexivity.
I did spot some playful references to French New Wave as well, especially with the piano theme going in the background. Were there any filmic references that you used in your film?
Not really. It's just that I like a lot of cinema. I watch a lot of films from all over the world. I love city films. Even in Indian films set in cities, like the Kolkata trilogy of Satyajit Ray. You know, there are so many interesting city films that we've made in our country. It was all just looking at all of that in my head somewhere. And the music, I really like to work in a more instinctive way about music. So I didn't really think of it as the French New Wave when I was using that jazz piece. It's actually by an Ethiopian nun. She's a pianist. She was a pianist. She passed away last year at the age of 93 or something, leaving behind this incredible body of work as a pianist. And her work has this, I mean, her music has this sort of universality, but also this simplicity, which is a bit deceptive, because it's so, the structure is not complicated, but it affects you in a way that you can't exactly put into words. And for me, music should do that. So when I heard this track, I was it has this feeling of when you are first time in love and you feel like everything is so nice and the world is lovely and this rubbish weather is actually very nice, and you just feel all and I felt like this while listening to the music, so I decided to use it. So like this, many of the pieces are just based on the feeling. So I use that piece, for example, only with Anu and Shiaz. So whenever you see them, it's like a leitmotif that it keeps coming back. So I encourage your watchers and listeners to Google Emahoy Sege Mariam Gebru, and because it's such great work. And I also had an Indian composer, Topshe, who did the other music in the film. So we worked together for 2 years while I was scripting. He would read the script and respond to the script, which is really, if somebody does that, it's just such a great collaboration.
The music in the film has been used in a way that it does create a lot of emotions in you, and sometimes there are no dialogues and it's just the background music going in and you just seep into what the characters are being going through. So congratulations on that. That's a success. Spoiler alert, guys. Let's talk about the scene of Prabha getting intimate with the rice cooker. Mm-hmm. How difficult was it for you to authentically represent that scene, knowing that there's a person and then there's an object in the frame rather than two people?
It becomes easier when you have a great actress. Kani Kusruti is nothing but that. Yeah. And she comes from a background of physical theatre. So her training is all in the body and how to use it to communicate. And so it just felt like the right step to take with the character of Prabha, and played by such an incredible actress. So actually it was just kind of like a to and fro between us, and she just got it.
I sunk in my seat because knowing the emotions that she's been going through, and it's not in your face through the film, right? Especially with Prabha, it's all in her head. She doesn't talk about it. Everyone else is, but she doesn't. She's all, you see her calm and collected and taking care of everyone, especially as a head nurse and stuff. But then that scene makes you feel how vulnerable she is. Bombay has a very distinctive personality, and the place has been used as a character in your film, which is hauntingly beautiful. Tell us a bit more about how you used lights and shadows to represent Bombay.
I wanted to shoot the city in the monsoon time because it has a very particular light in the monsoon, which y'all are very used to here in the UK, of this like gloomy light, but we don't have that in Mumbai. No, it's always bright and sunny, but only in the monsoon it's got this cloud cover that makes it a bit diffused light. You can't exactly tell what time of day it is because it's always like this. And the monsoon also is this weird hot tropical, just before it rains you just want to, you're full of sweat and it gets so much. So I felt like this particular time worked very well with the first half of the film, where all the characters also feel a bit stuck. I wanted to use that, and the light becomes then a very much part of that feeling. And I wanted to shoot also a lot of the nights, because the time that Anu and Shiaz get time off is the night. The day you have to work, when the night you meet and then you explore the city, and then the city lights become like the stars in the sky. And the darkness also gives refuge, because you can be anonymous, you can kiss your lover behind a bush in the park, and darkness gives you that solace, and that's, I don't know, for me that's great. So I didn't want to see like bright light in the first half, so that your eyes are, as we say, tarsoing. I don't know the English word for it, but are really thirsty, starving for it. So then the second half has this brilliant light, and suddenly you feel this, and it's not so much that I want to romanticize the countryside. That was not my intention, but it was to have a day off, a holiday, which is not something that people who come to the city can get that much. If you take a holiday also, you'll probably go back to your hometown, because that's the only time you'll get to go home. So this was a kind of a forced day off. So I wanted that feeling of a holiday, not something that's very happy also because the friend is going to go, but still that sense of a time off, time out.
Yeah. How is your relationship with Bombay? I know you mentioned a little bit about motifs that you've used through the film. Has your relationship with Bombay been spilled through the film?
Yeah, it has definitely. I have a very love-hate relationship with this city because, I'm actually from Mumbai, but I didn't always grow up there. I lived in different places, so I found myself in a very unique position because I am from there, but I'm also an outsider because I lived outside and I kept coming back, which puts me in a place where I can kind of very clearly see how the city is changing. I can see that feeling of flux very easily because it's only when you go away and come back do you see change. Otherwise, it's happening all around you. I think I have these mixed feelings towards the city because I can see that for a lot of people, and even my girlfriends, moving to a city like this is like Mumbai gives a lot of opportunity. You can be anonymous in a country where everybody's business is your business and your business is everybody's business. It's still nice that you can kind of forge your own independence. You can work late. You can have a kind of professionalism in your job. So there are all these very positive things, but it's like a really difficult city to live in. It's really costly. It's really expensive to just going up and down every day. When it rains, everything stops and it's horrible, and there's always like constant displacement. Even when you rent a flat, you have to leave in the stipulated time because of like rules of leasing, housing. So everybody's always on the move, so you can't ever settle. And I don't know, it's just a complicated place, and I'm trying to kind of understand my feelings towards it through cinema.
It's an insider's and an outsider's perspective at the same time. Spoiler alert again. I have to ask this question as a fan of the film and not as an interviewer today. Is the last scene where Prabha saves the man from drowning, is that an actual scene in the narration, or is that something she is imagining in her head to get a closure from a very important chapter of her life?
What do you think?
I think that's the beauty of filmmakers like you, is you kind of leave it to the audience to think. For me, I felt like it was partly imaginative and she did save someone, but everything else was in her head because she's wanted that closure forever, and she gets it from that moment. So I would like to know your thoughts.
You got it. That's what was important to me. Like what I was thinking in this film, there are a lot of men who are not there, but they're still causing problems. Like this husband is not there, but he's like causing all these issues. Parvati's husband is also not there, but all this paper problem is caused by him. And the woman in the beginning, Kaki, who's telling the story, her husband is also not there, but the ghost is coming around to annoy her. So it's all these lingering men who are not fully leaving, but causing all these problems. So for me, it was important that the catharsis of this woman is done by herself and not having a man coming and tell her that I'm leaving now. But she does it for herself because a lot of the morality, it's in her head, and she needs to kind of come to terms with it and let go, rather than anybody. She needs to have her own agency to do it. So this method felt like something that could be explored, because the whole film is so internal when it's Prabha's narrative, that even this for me needed to be internal. And in India we have so many issues with women expressing their feelings and desire, and especially towards men. It's always so complicated, and we don't have that much of a vocabulary for it. It's not that much there to how to do. So over the years we've had like women's tales, like folk tales, where a lot of these desires are expressed in some weird way to kind of talk about things that you can't talk about, like say Sangam poetry, or even where I'm from, the western Indian part, a lot of folk stories. Husbands become ghosts. Like Duvidha is a famous one. Then in Karnataka there are tales of like husbands becoming a tree or a dog, and then they can talk to it. Otherwise you can't talk. So I wanted it to kind of have that fable, folk tale feeling, which is so much part of our culture, to express those things which you can't express.
I'm glad that my PhD is not wasted. Which of the characters are you like the most? Is it Prabha, is it Anu, or Parvati?
That's a good question. My desire is to be like Parvati. That is my ultimate goal. Because I think she's phenomenal. Yeah, she's really great. But when I started writing the film, I was closer to Anu's age. And as I took a long time to write this film, by the time it finished, I was closer to Prabha's age. So I think my sympathies and empathy, not sympathy, but empathy grew from being from Anu's perspective to becoming kinder to Prabha or people like her, who at the beginning I didn't quite understand, but I grew closer and closer to. So I kind of see both of them as part of myself and the kind of conflict that I have within me often when I'm looking at women from a younger generation or women from an older generation, and maybe sometimes have reactions where I feel, oh God, why did I think this? Why did I have this judgment? Or why did I think like this about somebody? And I curse myself saying, oh God, where did it come from? I think that's what I've put in the film. Yeah, there's a bit of self-reflexivity there as well.
Is it safe to say that some of the characters, apart from your own self, have been derivative of the people you've known around or you've seen around in terms of their experiences?
Yeah, definitely. Like a lot of it, and a lot of the smaller stories also in the film have come from a lot of interviews that I did. I met a lot of nurses, young nurses, retired nurses. I met a lot of women working in Mumbai from Maharashtra, from the Konkan region. We met a lot of people who are part of the unions that are fighting for the rights of the workers who should be given the housing in the mill areas. And so a lot of research was done. A lot of scenes came from those interviews and those discussions. I really didn't have the imagination to come up with this placenta business. So it was from a young, it was from a woman who was telling me about her training days and what she went through with that. And this small things, daily life is so dramatic that we don't have to look elsewhere for any drama. It's really like walking from 10 minutes away to here, you'll see so many things that can become a film.
Your film is so brilliant in its subtle yet powerful interrogation of the contemporary society and politics in India. How do you locate this film along with other Indian indie new films that have been pushing the boundaries of representation, especially from a feminist or a female-centered perspective?
I mean, we've had such good films this year from India. Like, it's a great year for us. Yeah. Even in Cannes, we had like one film in every section from India. Wow. And a lot of them were about women's stories, like Sandhya Suri's film. Santosh was a fantastic film. And Sister Midnight was there in Cannes. And even the short film that won the student film prize was from India. So that's just something to note, that it's a good year for cinema. And a lot of and there was Shruti Talati's film also this year, which is a great film. Girls Will Be Girls, has the same actor also, and it's such a nuanced film. I think we're going in the right direction.
My last question is that the film has been doing rounds for quite some time. Was there any particular review or any particular observation that you had not thought of or you had not heard before that kind of was like, okay, wow, I didn't think about that?
Well, somebody summarized the film in a very simple line, which I realized that actually that's what it is. It's about holding on and letting go. And also it kind of feels like the last sound, which is the ocean sound of moving in and out, which I thought was an interesting observation. And it is, if you look at it in a very, very fundamental way, it's about holding on and letting go.
Thank you so much. Holding on and letting go. That's where we're going to stop today. Thank you.